Today, we're reading... Okay. Today, I will be reading The Magic Finger by Roald Dahl. With reading with Zoë Friends. Okay. The next farm next to ours is owned by Mr. and Miss Gregg. The Greggs have 2 children. Both of them are boys. Their names are Philip and William. Sometimes I go over to their farm to play with them. Hi, Evan. I am a girl, and I am 8 years old. Philip is also 8 years old. William is 3 years older. He is 10. What? All right, then. He's 11. Hi, Kai. Hi, Shayla. Last week, something very funny happened to the Gregg family. I am going to tell you the best way I can. Hi, Miss Mitchell. Now, the one thing that Mr. Gregg and his 2 boys loved to do more than anything else was to go hunting. Every Saturday morning, they would take their guns and go off in the woods to look for animals and birds to shoot. Even Philip, who was only 8 years old, had a gun of his own. I can't stand hunting. I just can't stand it. It doesn't seem right to me that men and boys should kill animals just for fun to do it for any reason at all. So, I used to try to stop Philip and William from doing it. Every time I went over to their farm, I would do my best to talk them out of it. But they would laugh at me. I even said something about it once to Mr. Gregg, but he was just walking past me as if I wasn't even there. Then one Saturday morning, I saw Philip and William coming out of the woods with their father, and they were carrying a lovely young deer. This made me so cross, I started shouting at them. Ah! The boys laughed and made faces at me, and Mr. Gregg told me to go home and mind my own P's and Q's. Well, that did it. I saw red, and before I was able to stop myself, I did something I didn't meant to. I pulled the magic finger on them all. Oh dear. I even put it on Miss Gregg, who wasn't even there. I put it on the whole Gregg family. For months, I had been telling myself that I would never put the magic finger upon anyone again. Not what happened to my teacher, old Miss Winter. Poor old Miss Winter. One day we were in class and she was teaching us spelling. Stand up, she said to me, and spell cat. That is an easy one, I said. K-A-T. You are a stupid little girl. Miss Winter said. I'm not a stupid little girl, I cried. I am a very nice little girl. Go and stand in the corner, Miss Winter said. Then I got cross, and I saw red, and I put the magic finger on Miss Winter. And good and strong, and almost at once. Guess what? Whiskers began growing out of her face. They were long black whiskers, just like the ones you see on cats, only much bigger. And how fast they grew. Before we had time to think, they were out to her ears. Of course, the whole class started screaming with laughter. And then Miss Winter said, "Will you be so kind as to tell me what you found so madly funny of all of you?" And when she turned around to write something on the blackboard, we saw that she had a grown tail as well. It was a huge bushy tail. I cannot begin to tell you what happened after that. But if any of you are wondering whether Miss Winter is quite all right again now, the answer is no. And she'll never will be. The magic finger is something I've been able to do all my life. I can't tell you just how I do it because I don't know myself. But it always happens when I get cross and I see red. Then I get very, very hot all over. Then the tip of my forefinger on the right hand begins to get tingly most terribly. And suddenly a sort of flash comes out of me. A quick flash. Like something like electric. It jumps and it touches the person who made me cross. And after that, the magic finger is upon him or her, and things began to happen. Well, the magic finger was upon the whole Gregg family, and there was no talking out of it. Talking it off again. I ran home and waited for things to happen. They happened fast. I shall not tell you what those things were. So I got the whole story from Philip and William the next morning after it was all over. In the afternoon of the very same day that I put the magic finger on the Gregg family, Mr. Gregg and Philip and William went out hunting once again. This time they were going after wild ducks. So they headed toward the lake. The first hour, they got 10 birds. The next hour, they got another 6. "What a day!" cried Mr. Gregg. "This is the best yet." He was beside himself with joy. Just then, 4 more wild ducks flew over their heads. They were flying very low. They were easy to hit. Bang, bang, bang! Went the guns. The ducks flew on. "We missed," said Mr. Gregg. "That's funny." Then, to everyone's surprise, the 4 ducks turned around, came flying right back to the guns. "Hey, said Mr. Gregg. "What on earth are they doing?" "They are really asking for it for this time." He shot at them again. So did the boys. And again, they all missed. Mr. Gregg got very red in the face. It is the lights," he said. "It's getting too dark to see. Let's go home." So they started for home, carrying with them 16 birds they hadn't shot before. But the 4 ducks would not leave them alone. They now began flying around and around the hunters as they walked by. Mr. Gregg did not like it one bit. "Be off!" he cried. But it was no good. He simply could not hit them. All the way home, those 4 ducks flew around in the sky above their heads, and nothing would make them go away. Late at night, after Philip and William had gone to bed, Mr. Gregg went outside to go get some wood for the fire. He was crossing the yard when all at once he heard the call of a wild duck in the sky. He stopped and looked up. The night was very still. There was a thin yellow moon over the trees on the hill, and the sky was filled with stars. Then Mr. Gregg heard noises of wings flying over his heads, and he saw the 4 ducks dark against the night sky, flying very close together. They were going around and around the house. Mr. Gregg forgot about the firewood and hurried back indoors. Mr. Gregg He was now quite afraid. He did not like what was going on, but he said nothing about it to Miss Gregg. All he said was, "Come on, let's go to bed. I feel tired." So they went to bed to go to sleep. When the morning came, Mr. Gregg was the first to wake up. He opened his eyes, He was about to put out a hand for his watch to see the time, but his hand wouldn't come out. "That's funny," he said. "Where is my hand?" He lay still, wondering what was up. Maybe he had hurt his hand in some way. He tried the other hand, but it still wouldn't come out either. He sat up. Then, for the first time, he saw what he looked like. He gave a yell and jumped out of bed. Mr. Gregg standing there on the floor. She gave a yell too, for he was now a tiny little man. He was maybe as tall as a seat of a chair, but no taller. Where his arms had been, he had a pair of duck's wings instead. But, cried Miss Gregg. going purple in the face. "My dear man, what's happened to you?" "What's happened to the both of us, you meant?" shouted Mr. Gregg. It was Miss Gregg, turned now to jump out of bed. She ran to look at herself in the glass, but she was smaller than she was even smaller than Mr. Gregg, and she too had got wings instead of arms. "Oh, oh, oh!" sobbed Miss Gregg. "This is witch's work!" cried Mr. Gregg, and both of them started running around the room, flapping their wings. A minute later, Philip and William burst in. The same thing happened to them. They had wings and no arms. They were really tiny. They were about as big as robins. "Mama! Mama!" cried Philip. "Look, Mama, we can fly!" And they flew up into the air. "Come down here at once," said Miss Gregg. "You're much too high." But before she could say another word, Philip and William had flown right out the window. Mr. and Miss Gregg ran to the window and looked out. The two tiny boys were now high up in the sky. Then Miss Gregg said to Mr. Gregg, "Do you think we can do that, my dear?" "Do you think we can do that, my dear?" "I don't see why not," Mr. Gregg said. "Come on, let's try it." Mr. Gregg began to flap his wings hard. And up he went. Then Miss Gregg did the same. "Help!" she cried and started going up. "Save me!" "Come on," said Mr. Gregg. "Don't be afraid." So out the window they flew, far up into the sky. And it did not take them long to catch up with Philip and William. Soon the whole family was flying around and around together. "Oh, isn't it lovely?" cried William. "I've always wanted to know how it feels like to be a bird." "Your wings are not getting tired, are they, dear?" Mr. Gregg asked Miss Gregg. "Not at all," Miss Gregg said. "I could go on forever." "Hey, look down there!" said Philip. "Somebody is walking in our garden." They all looked down, and there below them in their whole garden, they saw 4 enormous wild ducks. The ducks were as big as men. And what is more, they had great long arms like men instead of wings. The ducks were walking in a line to the door of the Gregg's house, swinging their arms and holding their beaks high in the air. "Stop!" called the tiny Mr. Gregg, flying down low over their heads. "Go away, that's my house!" The ducks looked up and quacked. The first one put out a hand and opened the door of the house and went in. The others went after him. The door shut. The Greggs flew down and sat on the wall near the door. Miss Gregg began to cry. "Oh dear! She sobbed. "They're taking our house! What shall we do? We have no place to go." Even the boys began to cry a bit now. "We will be eaten by cats or foxes in the night," cried Philip. "I want to sleep in my own bed," said William. Now then, said Mr. Gregg, it isn't any good crying. That won't help us. Shall I tell you what we're going to do?" "What?" they said. Gregg looked at them and smiled. "We are going to build a nest." "A nest?" they cried. "We must do it," said Mr. Gregg. "We've got to have somewhere to sleep. Follow me." And they flew off to a tall tree, and right at the top of it, Mr. Gregg chose the place for the nest. "Now we want sticks," he said. "Lots and lots of little sticks. Off you go, all of you, and find them and bring them back here." "But we have no hands," said Philip. "Then use your mouths." Mr. Gregg and the children flew off. Soon they were back, carrying sticks in their mouths. Mr. Gregg took the sticks and started to build the nest. "More," he said. "I want more and more sticks. Keep on coming." The nest began to grow. Mr. Gregg was very good at making the sticks stick together. After a while, he said, "That's enough sticks. Now, I want leaves and feathers and things like that to make the inside nice and soft." The building of the nest went on and on. It took a long time, but at last it was finished. "Try it," said Mr. Gregg, hopping back. He was very pleased with his work. Oh, isn't it lovely?" said Miss Gregg. Cried Miss Gregg, going into it and sitting down. "I feel like I might lay an egg any moment." The others all got in beside her. "How warm it is!" "It is," said William. "And what fun to be living so high," said Philip. "We may be small, but nobody can hurt us up here." "What about food?" said Miss Gregg. "What about food?" said Miss Gregg. "We shall be very careful, my love," said Mr. Gregg, and off they went. But when they got to the house, they found all the windows and doors closed. There was no way in. Just look at that beastly duck cooking at my stove, cried Miss Gregg as she flew past the kitchen window. How dare she! And look at that one holding my lovely gun, shouted Mr. Gregg. And one of them is lying in my bed, yelled William, looking into the top window. And one of them is playing with my electric train, cried Philip. Oh dear, said Miss Gregg. They're taking over the whole house. We shall never get it back. And what are we going to eat? Well, birds eat like worms. So, they have to eat worms. Oh, they answered my question. I will not eat worms, said Philip. I would rather die. Or slugs, said William. Miss Gregg took the two boys under her wings and hugged them. Don't worry, she said. I can mince it all up very nice, and you won't even know the difference. Lovely slug burgers. Delicious worm burgers. Oh no, cried William. Never, said Philip. Disgusting, said Mr. Gregg. Just because we have wings, it doesn't mean we have to eat bird food. We shall eat apples instead. Our trees are filled of them. Come on. So they flew off to an apple tree. But to eat an apple without holding it in your hands would not be easy. Every time when you try to get your teeth into it, it just pushes away. In the end, they were able to get a few small bites of each. Then it began to get dark, so they flew back to the nest and lay down to sleep. It must have been about this time that I, back in my old house, picked up the telephone and tried to call Philip. I wanted to see if your family was all right. Hello, I said. Quack, said a voice at the other end. Who is it? I asked. Quack, quack. Philip, I said, is that you? Quack, 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 quack. Oh, stop it, I said. Then there came a funny noise. It was a bird laughing. Quack, quack, quack. I put down the telephone quickly. Oh, the magic finger, I cried. What has I done to my friends? That night, while Mr. and Miss Gregg and Philip and William were trying to get some sleep up in the high nest, a great wind began to blow. The trees rocked from side to side, and everyone, even Mr. Gregg, was afraid that the nest would fall down. Then came rain. It rained and rained. And the water ran into the nest, and they all got wet, as could be, and Oh, it was bad, bad nights. At last the morning came, and with it its warm sun. "Wow!" said Miss Gregg. "Thank goodness that's over. I never want to sleep in a nest again." She got up and looked over the side. "Help!" she cried. Look down there!" "What is it, my love?" said Mr. Gregg. He stood up and peeped over the side. He got the surprise of his life. On the ground below them stood the four enormous ducks, as tall as men. And 3 of them were holding guns in their hands. One of them had Mr. Gregg's gun, one had Philip's gun, and the other one had William's gun. The guns were all pointing right next to the nest. Dun, dun, dun! Will they survive? No! Called out Mr. and Miss Gregg, both together. "Don't shoot! Please don't shoot!" "Why not?" said one of the ducks. It was the one who wasn't holding a gun. "You're always shooting at us." "Oh, but that's not the same," said Mr. Gregg. "We are allowed to shoot ducks." "Who allows you?" asked the duck. "We allow each other." "Very nice," said the duck. "And now we are going to allow each other to shoot you." I would have loved to have seen Mr. Gregg. "Oh, please," cried Miss Gregg. "My 2 little children are up here with us. You wouldn't shoot my children." "Yesterday you shoot my children," said the duck. "You shoot all 6 of my children." "All 16 of my children, except for 2. "I'll never do it again," cried Mr. Gregg. "Never, never." "Do you really mean that?" asked the duck. "I do mean it," said Mr. Gregg. "I'll never shoot another duck as long as I live." That's not good enough," said the duck. "What about deer?" "I'll do anything you say if you will only put down those guns," cried Mr. Gregg. "I'll never shoot another duck or any deer or anything else." "You will give me your word on that," said the duck. I will, said Mr. Gregg. "I will throw away..." "Wait, will you throw away the guns?" asked the duck. "I'll break them into tiny bits," said Mr. Gregg. "I will never again need you to be afraid of me or my family." "Very well," said the duck. "You may now come down. And by the way, I may congratulate you on the nest. For a first effort, it's pretty good." Mr. and Miss Gregg and Philip and William hopped out of the nest and flew down. Then, all at once, everything went black before their eyes, and they couldn't see. At the same time, a funny feeling came all over them. Then the black that was before their eyes turned to blue, green to red, and then to gold. Suddenly they were standing in lovely, bright sunshine in their own garden, near their own house, and everything was normal once again. Our wings have gone, cried Mr. Gregg, and our arms have come back. And we are not tiny anymore, laughed Miss Gregg. Oh, I'm so glad. Philip and William began dancing with joy. Then, high above their heads, they heard the call of a wild duck. They all looked up, and they saw the four birds, lovely against the blue sky, flying very close together, heading back to the lake in the woods. It must have been about half an hour later that myself walked into the Gregg's garden. I had come to see how things were going, and I had to admit it, I was expecting the worst. At the gate, I stopped and started. It was a queer sight. In the corner, Mr. Gregg was smashing all three guns into tiny pieces with a huge hammer. In another corner, Miss Gregg was planting beautiful flowers upon the 16 tiny mounds of soil, which I learned later they were the graves of the ducks that had been shot the day before. And in the middle of the yard stood Philip and William, with a stack of their father's best barley beside them. They were scrounged by ducks, doves, pigeons, sparrows, robins, larks, and many other kinds that I didn't even know. And the birds were eating the barley that the boys were scattering in a handful. Good morning, Mr. Gregg, I said. Mr. Gregg lowered his hammer and looked at me. My name is not Gregg anymore, he said. In honor of my feathered friends, I have changed it from Gregg to Egg. That's weird. He changed his last name from Gregg to Egg. And I am Miss Egg, said Miss Gregg. What happened? I asked. They seemed to have completely dotty, all four of them. Philip and William then began to tell me the whole story. When they had finished, William said, Look, there is a nest. Can you see it? Right up there on the top of the tree. That's where we slept last night. I built it all by myself, Mr. Egg said proudly. Every stick of it. If you don't believe us, said Miss Egg, just go in the house and take a look at the bathroom. It's a mess. They They filled the tub right to the brim, said Philip. They must have been swimming around all night, and feathers everywhere.
Ducks like water,
Mr. Egg said.
I'm glad they had a good time.
Just then, from somewhere over the lake, there came a loud bang! Someone's shooting, I cried.
That'll be Jim Cooper,
Mr. Egg said.
Him and his 3 boys. They're shooting mad. Those Coopers are, and the whole family.
Suddenly I started to see red. Suddenly I started to feel red all over. And then I got hot all over. Then the tip of my finger began tingling most terribly. And I could feel the power building up inside of me. I turned and I started running towards the lake as fast as I could.
Hey, shouted Mr. Egg. What's up? Where are you going?
To find the Coopers, I called back.
But why?
You wait and see, I said. They'll be nesting in the trees tonight. Every one of them. I'm done. Well, thank you for watching. And I'll give you a clue what I'm reading tomorrow. And I read the whole book of this. Every 63 pages. I bet it took 40 minutes or something. But I'll give you a surprise. Hey! Okay, I'll give you a surprise. Okay, look. It is not by this author, by the way, but it's probably hard to guess, but it's something about a nanny that they call a Manny. Well, hope you figure it out. And thank you for watching. Now, do you have any questions? Well, just post below, and then I'll answer it later. Now, remember to watch it again. Now, bye!